All right, good evening and welcome to Offstage Live. My name is Zach Compton. I'm the Director of Education and Community Engagement for the Jazz Arts Group. And Offstage Live is a series built to serve our Jazz Arts Group family as we all stay at home. During the series, we're going to listen to the music of some of our favorite musicians, jump in on conversations with some of the cast and characters of both the Columbus Jazz Orchestra and our community here in Columbus. And we're so thrilled to have you here live on Facebook. If you would like to continue to get notifications about these streams, you can follow us at Jazz Arts Group or at the Jazz Academy, both of our Facebook profiles, to get all of the updates. We'd like to dedicate this evening's program and lift our hearts and prayers and thoughts to those in the jazz community who have unfortunately lost their lives during this difficult time. Trumpeter Wallace Roney, guitarist Bucky Pizzarelli, and legendary pianist Mr. Ellis Marsalis. We send endless love and support to our own CEO, Press Southworth, as he battles courageously with this virus. And we believe with 100% certainty that Press wants us to continue our work with positivity and love for the arts, because we know that the arts can do something that nothing else in our world can. I'd also like to let you know that Jazz Arts Group is working tirelessly to continue our work in the community through performance and education. While many of our concerts have been canceled or postponed, our education team is working to continue to reach our students in the community. Our youth jazz program is still going virtually here on Zoom. And the entire JAG team and the board of directors are working to keep this organization moving so that the Columbus Jazz Orchestra, all the musicians that we serve, and everyone can continue our great work as soon as we're back together again. So with that in mind, if you are so compelled and able, we would love for you to donate to our organization at this difficult time. There are two ways to do that. One is through the donate button right here on the post on Facebook. And the other way is by visiting jazzemergencyfund.com. We've set up a place for you to be able to go directly to support our mission. And you can visit jazzemergencyfund.com to see here, read about the story of the work that we're doing right now in our community, and make a small donation. Anything you can do to support our cause will allow us to continue to support the musicians that you get to see on our stages, support the students and the teachers that are all over our community and beyond, and just allow Jazz Arts Group to be a positive light in our hearts in the community. Without further ado, we are here to have a wonderful time and to bring joy and love to your hearts. And what better way to do it than to bring in the saxophonists of the Columbus Jazz Orchestra. So I'd like to invite them into our virtual space right now. There's Michael Cox. There he is. Chad Eby, Sean Wallace, Byron Rooker, Pete Mills, and Jay Miglia. Gentlemen, how's it going?
Great. Good.
Good. It's so great to have you all here. I cannot wait to be able to laugh my rear end off. We had a little bit of a test stream yesterday to make sure our technology was in order, and it took about 5 minutes for all of us to be laughing and enjoying ourselves. So I'm confident that we'll have a good time. So right off the bat, you six gentlemen are the cast of characters that occupy the front row of the Columbus Jazz Orchestra. And I wanted to start with you, Mr. Byron Rooker. You've been in the band since the very beginning. You play the lead alto saxophone. And just wanted to start and first of all, welcome you to our stream and just check in and see how things are going for you in the Rooker household. What's going on in your world these days, making music and staying creative during this crazy, turbulent time?
Thanks, Zach. We're all both doing well. Actually, we're all four doing well. My wife, Michelle, and our two little dogs, Bentley and Lucy. We are staying home. We are going nowhere. We have to go to the grocery store occasionally, and I have to go to the bank or the post office occasionally. But other than that, we are staying home. Fortunately, we're well stocked with food and toilet paper. So, everything we need.
I'll be right there.
As far as music is concerned, I'm very fortunate in that I got a nice computer, and a couple of years ago, I was able to upgrade my notation program and my recording program, and so I can work on projects in the lower level of our house which is where my studio is. We have a studio and a reading room and my wife's sewing room. And so I can work on projects, and I record a lot of like rhythm sections and strings with MIDI, and then I record myself live over it. So I can play with anything from a quartet to an entire orchestra if I have enough time. And it looks like I'm going to have plenty of time.
Yes, as we all are. And Byron, your history with the band, we were just saying offline, goes all the way to the beginning. But before we get into that, if you would be so kind, I would love to hear you play a little bit, if you don't mind.
Well, all right.
What would you like to play for us?
Well, I like to play standards. I like to play standard tunes because that's how I learned. I didn't learn the way a lot of people learn now with real sound technical training and scales and chords and things like that. I learned by memorize the melody and use your ear. And to do that back then, I played standards. I still love playing standards. And so I'm going to play one that I'm quite fond of from Guys and Dolls, called I've Never Been in Love Before.
Great.
Yeah.
Bravo, bravo.
Happy.
Beautiful. So Byron, first of all, you sounded incredible, and your sound as the alto saxophonist with the CJO is obviously so defining for the section. It's something that you've been doing for quite a while, although it was not your first chair in the band. Talk about your first days with the band, and just a little bit about playing lead alto, kind of what you think about when you're sitting in the middle of the section of the Columbus Jazz Orchestra.
Yeah, I played one of the tenor chairs for almost 30 years, and was switched over to second alto when Ray was getting ready to retire, and Byron was going to come in, and then the lead alto retired, and they asked me if I would like to try the lead chair, and I did, and it worked out very well. I hadn't been an alto player that much over the years, mostly tenor, although I started on baritone. I actually started on clarinet. That was my main instrument. And then I was almost a self-taught saxophonist, because they said, if you want to, back in the old days, they said, if you want to play the saxophone, you should start on clarinet first. And I took that all the way to majoring in classical clarinet in college. So when I moved over to alto, I had done some teaching, and I used alto in teaching and played it a little bit professionally. But I was fortunate enough to study in school with a guy who had a real grasp of tone production on the different instruments. And so it was a little easier for me to adapt to the different sizes of the saxophone than it is with some people. And over the years of just listening to an incredible amount of music, I had a pretty good grasp of all the different styles. And I think that's what made it possible for me to continue to sit in that chair.
Well,
interesting. When the band started, I wasn't the youngest guy in the band. There was one guy that was younger than me. And now I'm not the oldest guy in the band. There's one guy in the band that's older than me.
That's okay.
Second chair, I guess, in that department. You know?
Okay. All right. All right. Well, you're first chair in our hearts. How about that? So,
Hey.
so I want to talk to you, Sean, because I don't want to go any further before we all here in the virtual space admire the incredible setup that you're sitting in right now.
Bunker.
I know, Sean, that you are such a hardworking musician. I know that as the chair of jazz studies at Ohio State, and you're a musical director for a church. Is that correct? I think you need to hit there you go.
Yeah, I'm the minister of music at Second Baptist Church.
And so, I know there's obviously a reason for all of the equipment. Talk just a little bit about the saxophone for starters, and how did you get started playing the saxophone, and then obviously the multi-instrumentalist aspect. Just talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, my dad was a great saxophone player, and I heard him playing around the house, and also my mother and my father played music around the house all the time, records, and so I knew I liked music, and the story goes, I don't remember any of this, but my dad had a trumpet sitting around the house, and I got a sound out of the trumpet when I was 2 or something, and then I just kept asking my dad to teach me saxophone because I would hear him playing saxophone around the house, and so when I turned 6, which is way too young to start playing saxophone, you can ask my orthodontist that. My dad created a wooden stand that could be set on top of a piano bench, and I could walk up next to the saxophone without the 1920 Con Alto that I still have, that's built like a tank and very heavy, so that I wouldn't have to support the weight of that saxophone. And it's the only thing that I wanted to do. As soon as I could handle it, I was practicing several hours a day, and music chose me. Like I don't remember ever wanting to do anything else but be a world-class musician. That's all I wanted to do.
Well, and one thing that is always fun to observe is our director of development, Kimberly Goodman, is an amazing flute player and has her doctorate in flute. And sorry, you guys, but most of the time when she hears you all play flute, she knows that her gigs. She knows that her gigs are safe, but then when Sean goes to play the flute, she goes, "Oh, it sounds so good." So,
That's right.
So Sean, we all know, and the Columbus Jazz Orchestra folks know that you're such a great multi-instrumentalist. If you would please, would you like to play something for us?
Sure. I could play maybe some Donna Lee.
That sounds great.
Let me change my microphone, and so I don't blow you out. Yeah.
Play it a little faster.
Yeah, no kidding.
Turning up the internet there.
He's gonna do it.
Sean, you sound really incredible. Just another question for you, Sean. As a teacher, I know that obviously at Ohio State you're continuing to do as much as you can to engage the students. Talk just a little bit about how things are going with teaching in this crazy virtual time.
Well, I prefer to be in person. Music is quite challenging, in this format, but I'm grateful that we have the technology to be able to, continue to provide education, provide counseling, to our students. One of the things that I, dislike the most about this is that I had to cancel the 43rd annual Ohio State Jazz Festival, which was not that great. But we've all had to cancel things, and all kinds of things have been put on hold. And but as far as what we're doing at Ohio State, we're keeping things moving. Students have been very flexible and have been patient with us as we're figuring out what we're doing. It's a lot of improvising, but like I said, especially with like the platform that we're using right now, this Zoom platform which allows you to share a screen with the audio, and then with the microphone still open. So I'll have students play a couple courses on something, and then I'll play a couple courses on something, and then we talk about things, and they can still, here's my 251, here's my what's a name in all keys or whatever. So we can still do that. And then I also have them submitting videos. I like YouTube. I think it's an opportunity for students to learn how to become content creators. There are two categories of people. The categories are not mutually exclusive, but there are content creators and there are consumers. And as artists, we want to be, as much as possible, we want to be content creators, and we have to be able to adapt to the new technology. So stuff like social media, YouTube, Facebook, all of the different platforms. We have to find creative ways to interact with people that are interested in the kind of art that we develop.
Right, absolutely. And on that similar note, I know Michael, Chad, Pete, Jay, all of you gentlemen are professors. Do any of you want to add to just the craziness of this time teaching, and maybe a positive story of something that's happened during this time with a student, despite all odds, still getting to make music together in the virtual space?
Sure. I got one. I had a meeting, sort of a hangout with my big band on Monday. Obviously, we couldn't all play music, but we talked about some music that I had assigned with them. And I had my students join me from 3 time zones in the United States and 2 time zones in Asia, all live. It was great.
Wow.
My student in Seoul was up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. My student in mainland China was hanging out in his bathrobe. It was great. It was fantastic. So we had a great discussion, and it was all live, and it was a great community. So I thought that was the community aspect of things. Above all, I think that's what we're striving to help continue, because music for all of us is so much about community and about sharing and about expressing.
Right. So
that's what I miss, and I'm excited that I can at least see y'all.
Yeah.
Look pretty good. That's what I got.
Well, I just want to transition really quickly to something here.
No!
Oh my gosh.
None other than Mr.
Fever.
Yep.
Look at that beefcake.
Look at that hair. Oh my gosh.
Must have been a windy day.
Michael, talk to us about this photo, man.
What happened to my current, right this moment image? No, this was during the first jazz arts group, which is what we called the big band, that then toured to Spain, which was at what, 95, 96? Now listen to Jay chiming in with.
Here we go. We're devolving.
So, but you notice that if you could expand, you can't do this, but this is a picture that one of the photographers at the Seville Jazz Festival actually sent to us.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's his photography business stamp on the corner there, and
Yeah.
that's so yeah. I couldn't tell you like if that was probably from the venue, in Seville, but that was one of two tours that at that point, I think the funding was pretty much spearheaded by the late Ray Hanley.
Mhm.
And we had, a couple of great tours, and there was a very active Sister Cities program between Columbus, Odense, Denmark, several cities, and that, so we actually got to go there and play, and it was a great tour. Gene Walker was on that tour.
Oh, nice.
Gary, just like a bunch of the old guys that aren't even on the band anymore. So my memories from that tour, mainly when I see that picture, I start seeing images of all those other guys. And by the way, those were the band outdoor gig shirts at that point.
Government issue.
That black and white jungle print thing, yeah. That was it.
The band
And the
haircut
hair,
too, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, was the mullet required too?
right, I know. That's
Get
still
that soon, guys. Don't worry, no haircut.
that's still the same hair. I was I was out in the sun a lot then, I guess, too. I don't know.
Well, Michael, I have a couple more questions for you, but first, I would love to hear you play the saxophone, if you would. Play.
Well, sure, yeah. Let's see. I figured, maybe a little bit of I'll do like half a chorus of Ellington, so I won't say what it is. I'll have to just play it well enough that everybody will know, hopefully.
Yeah, Tiger.
Beautiful, Michael.
Yeah, man.
Yes, and for those that may not know that tune, Ellington's "Sophisticated Lady."
Thank you.
Yes, Jay, you're welcome.
It's maybe a third of the tune, but
Yeah.
more.
First time Jay's ever heard that.
Yeah.
I think he Shazammed it
Right.
during Michael playing it. So
See, that's my problem. My jazz knowledge comes from Jay Miglia because he was my first combo coach at Capital University. So if he doesn't know it, then I don't know it. No, that was
My big band director before he was that for you.
wow. Well, that was beautiful, Michael. One more thing, Michael. I've had the pleasure of playing in a country band with you.
Yeah, we've done that.
We've done a few AmVets and Eagles Lodge circuit gigs, and I know that you have growing up in Oklahoma, correct?
Absolutely.
That one thing that I think the audience and everyone that listens to you play knows that there's a sense of humor in your playing that comes from all the tunes and all the things that you've acquired and absorbed over time. Just talk a little bit about the things that influence your musicianship, particularly from that humor and from carrying all those tunes of your past with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, one thing's for certain that, when people meet people who don't know me and they meet the professor, let me tell you, I meet people all the time who can't wait to prove they're smarter than a professor. And it's fun to knock off the professor, let me tell you. So, but then, then the first opportunity I have, I say, look, that wasn't how I got into music. I got into music. I had a just like just like probably all of these guys, I had a family that was musical. I had a brother named Danny, who's still around, who is one of those guys that went out and played gigs in Holiday Inn lounges in the 1970s. And my earliest experiences in training were not specific to jazz. So they weren't specific to classical. They weren't specific to orchestral music. They were about playing gigs. Just about playing tunes for real people. And so that's really as much at the core of my experience and my philosophy about music as anything else. But
Right.
I'll be the first one to poke fun at music professors, but but no, it really has, in this time, to echo what you were talking with Sean and Pete was chiming in about, that's the thing. I've been sitting here just like this. This is the same camera angle that all of my students are seeing right now, and we're making it work. I think if there are any lessons to learn from this, that my students we had to basically kick them out of the dormitories. We really had to close the residence halls. They were texting me saying, "Dr. Cox, could I have one more lesson in person before I have to go back to wherever, Bucyrus or wherever, because they're a little bit afraid of the connectivity." So we started using the term physical separation rather than social distancing. We're trying to keep engaged socially. And to me, that's the thing that music does with all of us, as we're all agreeing, I think. So.
Right, absolutely. And Michael, one more thing while we're talking. Your wife, Rosemary, has made a cameo in this chat to say that sadly, yes, you still own that shirt from the photo.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
They'll bring it out at the zoo concert.
It's still in the closet. Yeah, it's still there. Yeah.
So thanks, Rosemary, for confirming that. And of course, we all love her so much.
Hey, I have every necktie that Ray Eubanks ever picked out for the band. And you know what happens when you're a band leader and you pick out neckties for the band. The guys in the band are going to hate it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know too many guys in the band that really loved those shirts, but hey, I didn't mind it.
Well, and speaking of comments from Facebook, our maestro, Byron Stripling, has commented, quote, "Jay is cute."
Nice, paying attention.
Yeah. So Jay, I just want to ask you. I joked that you were my first combo coach, and it's the truth. When I started at Capital University, you were teaching alongside Michael in the sax studio and teaching some jazz classes. And I just remember those days of learning tunes, and you were such a great educator. And then I got to hear you play and was so inspired by your playing. Who were some of your earliest influences?
It could have gone the other way.
I know it could have, but
Then I heard you playing. Woo!
well, but I'm your student, so I only know as much as you do. Who were some of your earliest influences on the saxophone, and what drew you to that instrument?
Yeah, I don't know. I grew up in, like everybody else, it seems like a very musical family. So nobody played a woodwind instrument, though. And I think I just grew up, I was right at that point where popular music was really full of saxophone players, and I was just drawn to it. So, there was a lot in Detroit. We had really good radio stations. So I got to hear a lot of jazz, and I got to hear a lot of popular music that was instrumentally formatted. So it was just a good place to be. And there was so much saxophone, I couldn't miss it. Yeah. That man there, George Benson, from Detroit, a saxophone. Yeah, a really wonderful saxophone player and a wonderful teacher. One of my early teachers. So he's a guy who kind of he taught me that jazz actually has, there's a knowledge that you need there other than just kind of playing the saxophone. But he was just a really great mentor. He had a method and everything, and kind of locked you into a method. And yeah, great.
And one of the things that I've always been struck by for you, I got to see you present a clinic on saxophone playing at the Ohio Music Educators Conference this year, is that you have such a knack for presenting this information in a way that students can really grab it. It's there's no pretense there, and you're so able to somehow communicate in a way that's kind of like, duh, that is how that goes. So I think all of the students that I know that speak of you as a teacher, they're like, man, Jay showed me so much, and I think that is a testament to your ability to communicate, just like you said your teacher did, and lay some methods on students that are tangible and get people playing. So, but I think we need to prove to the virtual world that you can play the saxophone. Let's hear you play it too.
Oh, that hasn't been proven. I'll just play a couple of A sections from, how about, I'd like to play If You Could See Me Now.
Actually, Jay, can you mute your microphone before you play?
Stop it. Stop it.
See, man, you walked on my joke. I was going to play If You Can See Me Now, and I did that.
Oh, no.
Whose joke was better? Whose joke was better?
Jay's is always better.
So good.
Ted Dameron.
Yeah, Jay.
Beautiful.
Man, I didn't know you could play jazz.
I stood up. I didn't want you to
Nothing but love. Nothing but love in this bunch.
Nothing but love. Oh, that's brutal. Well, Chad, since you chime in there, time for you to put up. No, I do recall you, Chad, saying that one of your earliest influences on the saxophone was Stan Getz.
Yeah.
And I've actually learned, a few people know that I play a little saxophone from the high school days, and I just learned the tune Detour Ahead from a recording that he played. It was beautiful with Oscar Peterson. Talk a little bit about whether it's Stan Getz or just influences on the saxophone for you, but then also somewhere along the line, you decided to really pour into writing. And so talk about the saxophone, but then also talk about a little bit about your writing and the work that you've done, both for your band there in North Carolina, but also the Columbus Jazz Orchestra.
Gosh. Well, yeah, Stan Getz was definitely my first big influence. He was my father's favorite saxophone player. My dad was a saxophone player as well. In fact, this saxophone was his. He bought it new in, sorry, my wife is going out the door right now.
That's all right.
He says sorry, by the way.
That's
And
okay. Hi.
Hi, Carmen.
Everybody says hi, Carmen. Anyway, he was my dad's favorite saxophone player. And so I've been listening to Stan Getz literally as long as I can remember. I pretty much just grew up listening to jazz recordings, which made me pretty weird in rural 1980s Iowa. So he was the first big influence as far as sound, and I still find myself going back to that pretty regularly whenever I get the opportunity.
I love that photograph.
Yeah, that's my dad.
You were talking about your dad. Go ahead and tell us about this photo.
Yeah, so that's my dad walking in a parade at some point in the latter part of the 1950s in Olin, Iowa.
Wow.
Awesome. Go ahead and zoom in there.
Yeah.
And that is this saxophone, Notice that he's got a marching lyre on there with no music on it. I'm not really sure what that was supposed to prove.
better reception that way.
Right.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah, so that's my dad. We lost him in 1993, and I still think about him every time I play. So,
man.
Anyway, so that sound really was important to me. I had my first jazz teacher was a woman named Lynn Hart, who is in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, near where I grew up. And she's still teaching there today. And she's taught now, she's working on her second generation of young people going on, through learning how to play jazz, play the saxophone, play the clarinet. She's remarkable at all of them. I wish I'd learned how to play clarinet from her. That would have probably helped me out a lot. But so yeah, that was my big thing. But the writing thing, since you brought it up,
Yeah.
Some of that was by necessity. I had done a little bit of big band writing before I joined the CJO in 2003. I had written a few charts for Todd Stoll's Jazz to Go big band that used to play down in the Short North on Wednesday nights. Pete and I played in that band, and Jay was in there off and on. Michael would pass through.
Founding member.
Yeah, there you go. I probably took your place when you left. So
You did, actually. When you moved to town, I didn't get called anymore for that.
So I started writing for Todd's band, and then, when Branford Marsalis was going to be a guest in 2005, I had written a chart that I suggested to Byron that Branford might sound nice on, something that I had written, and so Byron was like, "Oh, so you can write." So then he just started giving me stuff to work on, and now he gives me more than I can really handle most of the time. So, but I think I'm up to. It's in the 170, 180 big band arrangements thing between the stuff I write for CJO, for my band here, commissions from other colleges and professional big bands, and yeah.
Well, and one of the things that the audience can notice about your writing is it's very deep, introspective. It's not overly unnecessarily complicated. It's very thoughtful what you write, and it really, in my opinion, and you other gents can chime in here, I think it really brings out a character of the CJO that's sensitive, and really just such a beautiful sound comes from the band when they're playing your charts.
When Chad writes his charts, he's writing for us.
Right.
That's the cool thing about it, and oftentimes our name is on the part, so it's like my part, and. And the cool thing is that I sit in the second tenor chair, which historically has like the weird notes. and when you have a part that is in the second tenor chair that has melody, like Chad writes, then you know that everyone else is playing a part that has a melody. So I think that's why these pieces sound so great, and they're so much fun to play. And I think we play them well because of that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
The thing I enjoy about them is they're not
Ellington's band, right?
Right.
Go ahead.
they're not stereotypic big band charts. He's writing music for that instrumentation, but it's not the typical follow the usual formula that so many of the arrangements follow. That makes it a lot more interesting to play.
And when we're playing and he's in the section, if we mess up, he knows it. So we probably play them even better.
Yeah.
And if
That does make a difference.
Tell him.
Yeah. Well, Pete, since you spoke up there and a nice transition from jazz to go.
I want to hear Chad play. Oh, look. Oh, yeah.
Pete, tell us about this photo, man.
Oh, this is from Todd Stoll's band.
Right.
Back in the middle 1990s, I think. And gosh, I was thinking of all of these guys just recently, especially Wes. That's Warm Daddy Wes Anderson, who we're thinking of him these days too. He is one of the swingingest alto players that I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right here. And Eddie Baird.
He's in a blue shirt there. Yep.
And Tony Baker, trombone.
Tony Baker.
And those were some fun Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that was K2U.
K2U, yeah.
Yeah.
And Wes was a frequent guest, a frequent fixture in Columbus for maybe 10 years on and off.
Yeah. So quite a few times here.
Yeah, and Pete, I'm going to come back to you, but Chad, I almost let you off the hook. I'd love to hear you play a tune.
Oh, yeah.
Let's hear that horn, baby.
And don't play that same solo you always play.
I haven't been practicing. I don't remember it anymore. No, I'm going to play a tune that I've been thinking about a lot lately. I learned it from both from a Ben Webster recording and from the Tony Bennett, Bill Evans recording. It's called "We'll Be Together Again."
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Chad, tell us the name of that song one more time.
That's "We'll Be Together Again" by Carl Fisher and Frankie Lane.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Pete,
Hi.
there you are.
I am.
Well, as we talked about Jazz to Go, but I also wanted to talk to you. We spoke about Chad's dad, and we've gotten into our family influences. And getting to play with you every Tuesday and playing in your band, I've learned a lot about your dad, Mighty Ernie.
Mighty Ernie.
Ernie.
Mighty
Yes.
Ernie. Hold on. I'm going to find a picture of Mighty Ernie.
I guess Pete had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Mighty Ernie. Mighty Ernie.
Hey, bring that up closer.
Oh yeah.
Mighty Ernie.
All I can see is Jay.
Yeah.
No.
I feel the same way.
That's all right. We'll show the audience here. We'll get a copy of that and show them.
My dad. My dad.
Talk a little bit about his jazz aficionado life.
Jazz aficionado life. My father was not a musician at all. He worked for an oil company, but he was probably the most knowledgeable person that I think I perhaps even know now about music, all kinds of music. He loved opera, he loved orchestral music, and he loved jazz so much. Louis Armstrong was his guy, and he loved Ellington so much too. He had a great record collection that I would check out, and he would also be listening to music a lot with his buddies, like on a Friday night or whatever. So I'd hear it. He took me to hear some amazing artists that I look back on and I can't believe. I remember hearing the Basie Band when they wheeled the Count out in his wheelchair right to the piano, and the band played.
Wow.
I remember near my house there's a community college, and Oscar Peterson gave a 3-hour solo piano concert in the middle of the summer, and there was no AC. It was nuts, but everybody stayed. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I owe a lot to the sounds around the house, and my dad's love of the music. It's seeped into what I do.
Wow. And one of the things that many people close to the Columbus Jazz Orchestra and Columbus know is that you have a lot of original music. And one particular thing you've done to, I think, an incredible degree is recorded yourself. And you've challenged yourself to record with people that you admire. And you really have had a mind for recording and what you want to accomplish in that space. Talk just a little bit about recording and what that's meant for you and your sound.
Well, I don't know. It's a good documentation of where I've been over the years. It's afforded me opportunities, as you mentioned, to play with some people that I admire, throw them some money, and they'll make music with you. it's been fun to kind of open up the circle of people that I play with, and in turn, at times, open up the circle of the people who get a chance to hear my music.
Yeah.
I think it's for me. I think for all of us too. Get a little closer to the mic.
There you are.
I think for all of us, it's a good way of contributing a little bit of our own personal self into the music. It's hard to be real personal in this music, but if you're playing stuff that you've created, even if it's in a framework that already exists,
right,
that helps to push a little bit of yourself into it.
Yeah, and then I get to play with you, as I mentioned, every Tuesday at the Park Street Tavern, which used to be the 501.
Yes.
And that jam session's been around for, is it 16 or 15 years?
We're in our 16th year.
So does that mean we're 15 or 16?
It depends how you want to promote it.
Okay, all right.
How'd it go last week?
Oh,
yeah.
Don't do that to us, Chad.
Oh man, none of us has any gigs. It's okay.
You're right. But just talk briefly about why has it been so important for you to be at the helm of a session like that, and why is it important for a community like ours to have a session like that?
Having sessions in every community is important. It's how we get a chance to hang out, play, and exchange ideas. And we invite the audience, the patrons of the place we play, to kind of witness that little experiment that happens on the bandstand every week. It's great to have you on the band. It's great to have all my friends here in the virtual world come and join us. And I'm so lucky to do it. Gosh, it's an amazing opportunity for me to learn every week.
And it's a great chance. I was saying this last week with Byron, when the CJO is playing during a week, we do these education events and we take the guest artists out. And then there's the jam session at the Westin on either Friday or Saturday night. And then Tuesday, a lot of times the artists come out on a Tuesday and sit in. And so, it really feels like during that week that we have a show, the whole community is just sort of buzzing with good energy. And I know for one thing, the Tuesday jam session is something that really is a part of that for sure.
Well, it's fun to be a part of all that stuff. I'm glad you're there. And I'm glad that my fellow saxophone players here in the virtual world are there in the real world.
What would you like to play for us, Pete?
Hey, Zach. Zach, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
I just want everybody that might be watching to really appreciate what it is that Pete has been doing there for all these years. I mean, raise your hand, all of us here. How many of you have had a gig at the same venue every week for 16, 17 straight years? Raise your hand. Maybe 4, maybe 5, right? Years, right. But not 16. So the fact that Pete has kept this rolling for this long and that the venue has supported it for this long, it's really a testament to both of those parties, and the fact that Columbus is really, really lucky to have that.
Right.
And they should be making sure that they find their way out there as often as possible. So
yeah, and I think that you hit it right on the head. We have to have a partnership with the guys in the band, the folks who come and play with us, the venue owners, Chris and Scott. We're so lucky that they support work. They understand the importance of it, And then all the people who come out to play and just to come out to hang out and drink, buy a drink, we're very lucky. It's a great community.
Yeah. Pete, play us a tune, man.
All right. My father loved Ellington, and he also loved Billy Strayhorn. This is a little Billy, Chelsea Bridge.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Killing.
I didn't want you to stop.
Killing.
I don't know the rest.
There's more.
That's great. So, gentlemen, I want to go rapid fire on a few things. But before that, well, this might be a good one. Maybe we could go around the room on this one. We have a question from Facebook, and this is a kind of an interesting one. Do you guys typically practice standing, even though you all sit during your gigs, your CJO gigs? Anybody can chime in there.
Well,
No.
No, I practice. I make a point of practicing both. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to practice sitting down.
Yeah.
I practice both.
Yeah.
Like today, I practiced standing up.
Right.
I was standing, really.
It depends on if the
You didn't even give us a chance for that with that joke.
No, I stood up to play my thing because they had told me don't get too close to your microphone or it'll distort, that kind of thing. So we're doing some of that a little bit logistically, but yeah, I think it's important to be able to do both.
Yeah. Let's go around rapid fire on, they're obviously not the one unless there is the one, but name one musical hero when it comes to specifically when you play the saxophone. If you can quickly envision a hero that influences that sound, who would that be? Chad?
Well, it's not a saxophone player, but it's Louis Armstrong, because without him, there would be none of us. So.
Yeah. Pete?
Well, it's got to be a sound, and the sound is from a record, Coltrane record called Lush Life. The sound that he gets on that record, it like spins in my brain, and I'm always chasing it.
Yeah. Art Taylor on the drums, for those of you that want to know. Byron?
That's really hard because it's different on the different horns. On alto, from a lead alto standpoint, it's a guy named Frankie Ford who played lead alto with the old Maynard Ferguson band before Maynard Ferguson started playing Rocky and Fire and Rain and things like this. Back the 1950s, 1960s Maynard band. In fact, that was my favorite saxophone section of all time. It just was a really hard sound, and there were only 4 of them. But Frankie Ford was kind of who I'm imagining myself to be when I'm playing lead alto.
Wow.
And tenor, it changes all the time. My favorite tenor player is one of those guys who, like Miles, I don't think of Miles Davis as a trumpet player. I think of him as an artist who plays trumpet. My favorite tenor player, I think of similarly, and that's Charles Lloyd.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Great. Jay, what about you?
Oh, Byron took mine.
That's okay.
I agree with a lot of what Byron was saying. It's because on the different saxophones, you kind of have a different idea. I think I played mostly jazz tenor for most of my life, and that probably the biggest influence would be the Coltrane sound, like Pete was talking about. Although I don't get that anymore. I don't think I get that. I think I got my best sound when I was getting the Coltrane sound, and I started messing with things, and I don't get that anymore, and I don't like my sound.
Jay, I find I have to adapt my sound as I get older.
Oh yeah, what are you trying to say?
I sound like an old guy now. I think Zach has a picture of me back when I used to be.
Oh, yes.
Put that one up.
I'll work on that. Meanwhile, Sean, how about one of your heroes that comes to mind quite often for you?
Well, it's kind of different on different instruments. On flute, it's Hubert Laws. On clarinet, it's Eddie Daniels.
Yeah.
On saxophone, it's Sonny Stitt and John Coltrane. On bass, I love Victor Wooten and Jocko. On guitar, Alan Holdsworth and George Benson. Probably
what I love about that is just how wide-ranging, each of those musicians represent their own distinct time period and era and sound. That's really quite an eclectic mix of musicians. Yeah. Michael, what about you?
Like the same ones that everybody mentions, and like a couple of people have pointed out, it's so hard to pick one. I can't really ever pick one favorite in terms of just saxophone or just saxophone sound. Some of the guys who know me well, I have a love affair with Wayne Shorter. I love Wayne Shorter, but it's so much more than just his saxophone playing. It's his compositions, and it's just the things that he says. People are always puzzling over things that Wayne Shorter. It's like a hobby for us jazz musicians. Do you know what he meant when he said it's just so busy swimming that it's in the water? Well, that comes from Zen. It comes from, yeah. So yeah, as a total artist, everybody that's been mentioned, Miles Davis, you don't even think of it as trumpet. And I think some of my favorite musicians are also people who never recorded, at least not widely. One of my favorite musicians of all time, and it defies and goes beyond the instrument, Gary Carney, the late Gary Carney, who used to play trombone in the jazz chair in the Columbus Jazz Orchestra. One of my all-time favorite sounds, musicians, lyricism, inventiveness. There was never a note that I heard Gary Carney play that I didn't just absolutely love. But there's so many, and then like Professor Rooker points out, once you've been around long enough, it's a lot more interesting to look for the ones that not everybody knows about. Right. So there's a lot of major influences. So I can't pick just one. Yeah.
Well, even though I'm a drummer, my dad was a saxophone player, and the saxophone player that comes into my ears so often, the language and the sound and the character, for me, is Sonny Stitt. I just love everything about his sound, and to Byron's point and Jay, totally different person on the alto to my ears than the tenor, and in terms of you can hear his influences on each differently and distinctly. Before we get the last question, Byron Stripling comments, "Hello from Paloma Stripling."
Hi, Paloma.
Paloma says hello. Hi, Paloma. And let's go rapid fire before we close it off. One album that we can be checking out that either is a desert island or even just something that is on your mind recently. We'll start with you, Byron.
Oh boy. Now I'm having a senior moment. It's Eberhard Weber, and the album is Later That Evening, I believe.
Okay. Who is the artist? Say it again.
Eberhard Weber.
Okay.
A bass player, German bass player. That's my favorite album of all time.
Wow. Jay.
Oh man, just one. That's hard. That's hard.
It's so hard.
Just one for now. It doesn't have to be the one.
One for now. One for now. Yeah.
Oh man, they're so good. There's so much good music out there. I don't know if anybody can even buy this thing anymore, but there was a live Miles Davis thing from 1960, and I have to say, if there was one record that I listened to like a million times, I know I listened to that one a million times. I prefer live recordings because when you're talking about jazz, it's where it's really, you just get a better representation. I'm taking up time, sorry.
No.
So it's the record when I bought it. It was called Live in Stockholm, 1960.
Oh, that one, yeah.
And that's just awesome. Coltrane sounds amazing on that record. The rhythm section is so killing.
Yep.
And Miles is himself, just perfect. Right. And there's a Coltrane interview on there too. You can listen to him speak to this Danish radio guy, this music dude, and it's a really insightful interview to hear him speak. So,
and if I recall, he had just recorded Giant Steps and had given Miles his notice.
Exactly.
And was finishing that tour, right?
That's the record. Yeah, that's the one. There's another one out there too. There was like another leg of that tour, and there's like some other thing in there too. And it's just listening. You're basically listening to Coltrane practice on stage. He'll do a whole chorus of Green Dolphin Street playing one idea. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Sean, what about you, Sean?
I have to do two. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The first one is Love Supreme, Coltrane. And then the second one is Klaus Ogerman and Michael Brecker recording Cityscape.
Oh, yeah. Love that record.
And I'm going to need to get you guys to send me, email me these so we can send them to our audience and give them a little playlist.
Yeah.
Michael, what about you?
There's one record I always go back to on a lot of different levels, and it's also a John Coltrane record, the one called Crescent.
Yes.
Yeah, that's been a favorite for so long on a lot of different levels. It's the first Coltrane record I ever bought with my own money. I have an emotional tie to the physical product of the vinyl record itself, and then as I've listened to it for probably over 40 something years, that's one I always go back to.
Yeah, great. Chad, what about you?
I'm going to cheat too, but what's been on my turntable most heavily recently is Herbie Hancock's "Speak Like a Child" album, which is beautiful on so many levels. But I'd also just like to throw out there that everybody who is maybe unfamiliar on any level with the music of the great Ellis Marsalis should go out and explore his music immediately. Absolutely. Because he gave us all so much. But in particular today, I've been spinning the album that he did with his son Wynton called Joe Cool's Blues a lot today. So he was an amazing educator, and obviously he taught several generations of great musicians, not least of which his sons. So anyway, just
absolutely,
the master.
Yep. Pete, last but not least,
I'm going to tell you what I'm going to listen to after we get off the stream, because I just got this from a good friend of mine up in Canada. It's a ballad record by a great pianist who's also a bassist, amazing musician, Don Thompson. Joe LaBarbera's on this. Can you see it?
No.
There's some reflections and glare, but that's better.
And one of my teachers, Pat LaBarbera, great tenor saxophone player, who worked with Elvin Jones, and he's one of the greatest teachers and players living in Canada. He's an American. His brother Joe and his brother John are real fixtures in the music. And I just got this from a friend of mine who sent it to me from Toronto, and I'm going to spin it. That was my plan.
Yeah.
At 8 o'clock tonight. So report back.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I want to let you guys know that in the comments here on Facebook, we have plenty of comments saying we miss you, we miss the CJO, we miss the saxophones, we miss you guys. So you guys are so loved by our fan base, and I know that everybody's clamoring to get back together. But I have to say, for one, it's been a real pleasure to get to talk to you all in this setting. We'll have to do part 2 of the saxophones, I think, no doubt about it.
You know what? You can join in next time if you want, because
I don't even know what you're doing. Oh my God, put that away. Oh God, no. I'm going to mute you.
Yes.
Oh.
Zach sent me that. It's a Sonny Stitt transcription that he's working on tenor.
Yeah, I've never played tenor, so it's I was always an alto and bari player, so I've got a little bit of time right now.
Guys, scared.
Can I plug something?
Yeah, go Sean, please.
A couple things. One is I recently released a book on Hal Leonard called "How to Improvise Over Chord Changes." Yeah, and it was released in September 2018.
I got mine.
And then the second thing is I just started a series of videos for my YouTube channel called The Quarantine Interviews. Yeah. And I'm interviewing, actually, right after this, I'll be interviewing Byron Stripling, interviewing Rodney Whitaker, and I interviewed Dr. James Bunty, and my old saxophone teacher from my undergrad, Trent Keniston, Carmen Bradford, Victor Wooten. It's a long list of really great. Hamilton Harden, Chris Johnson.
Damn.
So yeah, if you want to check that out, I mean, one of the cool things about it, I was trying to take advantage of an opportunity. Sometimes a crisis doesn't seem like an opportunity, but often it can be seen as an opportunity. And a lot of people that I love their music, and I want to dig deeper for gold and have these conversations and share that information. But no one's ever available. Everybody's busy because everybody's working. But now everybody's available. So it seemed like a cool thing to do.
Very cool. Yeah, and thank you for doing it. That's great. Well, as I was saying, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to our audience that is tuning in, and we'll continue to check these out after we conclude today. You can find these on Facebook at the Jazz Academy and at Jazz Arts Group, and they will also start to pop up on YouTube at the Jazz Arts Group YouTube channel. And then this Sunday, Byron Stripling is back with the trumpeter guest artist whom we did not have the fortune of having with us in March, Mr. Tony Glousy. And Tony was somebody that came to our session on a Tuesday, sounded incredible, went to a school and captivated students just before things started being shut down. So you don't want to miss that. You can also, if you would love to support the Jazz Arts Group, we would love that ourselves. You can support us in the Jazz Emergency Fund in the description here, or by clicking the donate button. Go to jazzartsgroup.org. Anything will help us continue to keep this alive. And of course, as I mentioned in the opening, our hearts are with the entire world, the entire jazz community, and especially with our CEO, Press Southworth, who is currently battling the virus. We believe in him and his strength and positivity to pull through, and this one's for him. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Zach.
We will see you next time. Can't wait to see you in person. Bye.
See you guys.